Let's face it, this year has been very peak, but how much of it can you remember?
Yet with COVID-19 dominating the headlines, Harry and Meghan quitting as senior royals, quarantine, radio, and Elon Musk's strangely named child, they all seem like lifetimes ago.
Don't worry though, we at Blackprint have recapped some noteworthy headlines from each month of this historic year.
So sit back and grab yourself a drink from an essential shop and let's kick off with January.
January is supposed to be a month of optimism, a month of hope, a time to wash away all of the negative thinking and the negative happenings of the previous year and to usher in a new positive way of thinking. But almost immediately, 2020 showed us that this was going to be a unique year and was not going to be on this positive stuff. Yes, only 3 days into January, and World War III was on the horizon with Iranian military commander General Qasem Soleimani being killed by a US airstrike in Iraq. Whilst the media hyped up the possibility of military conflict across the world, Twitter took a more jovial approach to World War III. Yes, in true Twitter fashion, memes were flying about the possibility of airstrikes and mass loss of life. There's only one way to cope with fear, and that's through memes. We all know that, right? 2019 ended with the word Brexit on the tips of everybody's tongue. But in January, Brexit wasn't the only thing that the UK needed to worry about. Yes, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, or Harry and Meghan, announced that they will be stepping back as senior royals and working to become financially independent instead. This sent the Queen absolutely raging because apparently she wasn't consulted, and it sent the public absolutely raging because we just spent £2.4 million renovating their Frogmore cottage. Harry and Meghan agreed to pay back the £2.4 million and also agreed to not using their His and Her Royal Highness monikers. I hope some of that money was sent back to the NHS, because for reasons that we'll touch on later, they need it. In slightly more positive news, the film Joker led the way in the Oscars with 11 nominations, although criticism once again had been drawn due to the lack of diversity among nominees. Joaquin Phoenix used his win at the BAFTAs to address this lack of diversity.
Just say that I also feel conflicted because so many of my fellow actors that are deserving don't have that same privilege. I think that we send a very clear message to people of color that you're not welcome here. I think that's the message that we're sending to people that have contributed so much to our medium and our industry and in ways that we benefit from.
And to round off what was a pretty shit opening month in what was essentially a pretty shit year, sport lost one of its icons. Basketballing legend Kobe Bryant, along with 8 others including his 13-year-old daughter, died in a shocking helicopter crash. Tributes poured in across the NBA but also across the world, with many wearing his retired 8 and 24 jerseys as a mark of respect. Yet, January was pretty heavy hitting, and trust me, it did not let up in February, as we'll see now.
January set the pace, and February kept it moving in 2020's year of destruction relay. But not straight away, there was at least a few shining examples of greatness.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
Parasite has 6 Academy Award nominations and is the first film not in the English language to win Best Picture, winning 4 Oscars tonight.
Parasite becomes the first film in a foreign language to win Best Picture, and it is so deserved. Honestly, it is such a good film. For those of you out there that refuse to watch anything like that because you need to read subtitles, grow up. But that's where the good times stop. Caroline Flack, who recently was accused of assaulting her boyfriend, an accusation that her boyfriend himself denies and says was overblown by the media, took her own life on the 15th of February after the turmoil and persecution was becoming too much after the internet decided to attack her, chastise her, use their personal agendas against her, and essentially bring her completely down for an accusation that wasn't proven, an accusation that the person who was attacked was even denying. People took their agenda out on her and she couldn't take the bullying and took her own life on the 15th of February. Rest in peace, Caroline Flack. Trump is acquitted. After being charged by the Democrats for allegedly pressuring Ukraine to create a smear campaign against a White House rival, the Senate acquit Trump and clear him of all charges. Something that at the time was considered a massive blow to the Democrats' hopes of getting back into the White House during the election year. With February also came the announcement that COVID-19 had arrived in the UK. Around the world, 600 deaths had been recorded, and the UK had finally, inevitably so, received their first batch of patients. A month later, we were put into full lockdown 1. It was a scary time, can't lie to you. At that point, I was still at work. Most of us were still at work, living our lives, thinking, this isn't going to be that much of a big deal. Boy, were we wrong. God. Boy, were we wrong.
Rising New York rapper Pop Smoke has died. He was 20 years old. LAPD confirmed the news to Rolling Stone that the rapper was shot and killed during a home invasion Wednesday morning.
This one was so sad. Pop Smoke had just really started his career. He was big here in the UK. He had that sound, that raw sound that, quite frankly, had been missing for a long time. And he was really getting into his own. We called him the new 50 Cent. We haven't had that sound really since 50 Cent. It was a shame to see him go. He will be missed and his legacy will go on. Rest in peace, Pop Smoke, man. Whew. And that was only some of what went down in February. Wait till you hear about March.
It's probably an understatement to say that March was a significant turning point in the COVID-19 saga. On the 11th of March, the World Health Organization named the virus a pandemic for the first time. Concern was also expressed regarding the alarming level of inaction. This created a domino effect of responses from governments worldwide. In further bad news, and in response to the growing pandemic, the Glastonbury Festival was cancelled in what would have been its 50th anniversary year. Headline acts included Kendrick Lamar, Paul McCartney and Taylor Swift. It wasn't long before many other summer festivals began to follow suit. In a more cheery tone, in the UK, a weekly Clap for Carers campaign began. Every Thursday for 10 weeks, the public stood on their doorsteps to clap for those working on the front line during the pandemic, a sign of appreciation for the NHS and care workers. And finally, social distancing becomes an essential everyday phrase as the government plunges the UK into a national lockdown from the 21st of March. Now, as a lover of personal space, I'm all for social distancing. Not so sure about the lockdown.
We've reached April. That means I've just become a bit older. And it means we're in lockdown, baby. Boris Johnson has been put into intensive care. He went through a campaign of describing COVID as something that isn't as bad as it seemed. I remember there was a portion of his interviews where he was stating that he would shake a patient in the hand because everybody deserved a handshake, and quite frankly it came to bite him in the end, and he ended up getting intensive care treatment for receiving COVID at a very integral part of the year where the people really needed their leader. He ended up having to issue demands from bedside, and it was a really bad time for him. The death toll for coronavirus in the UK in April had hit the 20,000 mark. At that point in time, we were going through nearly 600 to 900 deaths a day. It was a very scary time. We'd never experienced anything like this. On the other side of the pond though, President Donald Trump single-handedly had found a cure. He was going to save the world. The cure was to inject disinfectant into our bodies. Donald Trump eventually, down the line, stated that he was joking. Moving on from COVID quickly. In April, Kanye West was officially crowned a billionaire with a personal net worth of $1.2 billion US. He had created his empire in the fashion industry like he always wanted. And he had gone from height to height to height, which is a massive achievement considering a few years ago he was 50 million in personal debt. In pure Kanye fashion though, he disputed the claims and said that he isn't 1.2 billion, it's closer to 3.3 billion. And since then, it's reported that he's even worth now over $5 billion, which makes him the richest musician of all time and the richest black man in America. As a big Ye fan myself, he told you so, like.
Am I venturing into the fashion industry? Did you see this cup?
COVID really had the world in a stranglehold at this point, especially the sporting world. Live events were being postponed and or cancelled. This actually did happen in the Netherlands, where the Eredivisie was declared null and void, Ajax having to let go of what would have likely been a title for them. And we were using Ajax and the Netherlands as a bright and shining example to why we should have scrapped the Premier League as well, because Liverpool were running with it and we needed them out of it. But no, them Scousers persevered and they managed to use their power and keep the damn thing and catch their first title in 20-something years. As you can see, April was a very tough month as well. We had a few little moments of joy that we managed to get through the dark clouds, but it wasn't stopping. It was not stopping. May is next.
So May was a very interesting month across the fields of politics and entertainment. Firstly, we had Boris Johnson and Carrie Simmons naming their child Wilfred after the doctor that saved his life from COVID. The month of May sees the saga around public messaging for COVID continue as government changes their angle from stay at home to stay alert. Very, very confusing. Check out these memes. In the world of entertainment, UK-based radio station No Signal hosted some wavy 10v10 clashes, none bigger than WizKid vs Vybz Kartel, which clocked in over 200,000 listeners throughout the evening. Salute to you guys. One of the biggest and most harrowing stories from the year was the brutal killing of George Floyd whilst in police custody, sparking mass debates, uprisings and riots across the US as well as in Europe.
According to the charging documents, police were responding to a call of Floyd using a counterfeit $20 bill. During the attempt to put a handcuffed Floyd into the police car, the defendant pulled Mr. Floyd out of the passenger side of the squad car, held him with a knee to the neck. At one point, another officer asked, "Should we roll him on his side?" Chauvin replied, "No, staying put where we got him." Prosecutors contend Mr. Floyd being restrained by the police, his underlying health conditions, and any potential intoxicants in his system likely contributed to his death. But the prosecutor says the preliminary autopsy does not support that Floyd died from strangulation. Benjamin Crump represents Floyd's family.
They were very clear in their position that it should be first-degree murder charges and the other officers should be arrested too.
The 3rd Precinct Police building where the 4 fired officers worked was at the center of the anger.
I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
After police abandoned the building, protesters set it on fire.
Rest in peace to George Floyd. We hope that these discussions can continue and develop into both practice and policy, not only in the US, but throughout the whole diaspora.
Protests sparked by the killing of George Floyd in May carried over into June and became the largest protest in history. Protests in Bristol led to a statue of former slave owner Edward Colston being torn down and dropped in a river. Belgian protesters did the same thing with a statue of King Leopold II, and this sparked a mass review of statues across the UK. Whilst the majority of the Western world were posting black squares on social media, there was a counter-BLM protest happening in the UK, organised to protect the statues.
This group, including far-right activists, said they came to London to protect symbols of British history from anti-racism protests.
That's crazy, because to me, it looks like they just came to fight. June also saw a major relaxation of the lockdown rules, meaning that pubs, hotels and restaurants could all open back up, and it also saw a return of the Premier League. Yep, football finally returned back to the big screen, with all Premier League clubs taking a pro-BLM stance, taking the knee before every single game, and having Black Lives Matter printed on the back of their shirts. This approach was not supported by everybody though, including the government's own Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab.
I've got to say on this taking the knee thing, which I don't know, maybe it's got a broader history but seems to be taken from the Game of Thrones, feels to me like a symbol of subjugation and subordination rather than one of liberation and emancipation.
Game of Thrones, you know, you just have to laugh. First game of Project Restart saw something really rare happen.
Michael Oliver expressing the fact that his watch hadn't vibrated, the GDS had not triggered. But look at this. The evidence pretty indisputable that ball had crossed the line. There was still time, incidentally, for VAR intervene, a further minute and 9 seconds, but it finished goalless, and Chris Wilder was denied victory in their first game back. So what did Hawkeye have to say about it, the people that actually run the GDS technology? Well, they said this: the 7 cameras located in the stands around the goal area were significantly occluded by the goalkeeper, defender, and goalpost.
Sir King Marcus Rashford the Great prompted a government U-turn, which meant that children who would usually be receiving free school meals during the term would be receiving free food vouchers throughout the summer holidays.
The government make a U-turn on the decision to stop the free meal vouchers, and I'm just hoping they do it as soon as possible. Really, I know they've mentioned that they usually do this, this time of year, summer holidays, but because of COVID, the situation's been completely different for everyone in the world. So, circumstances change. So I think, for at least summer holidays, they have to be willing to make that decision to go back on themselves.
And finally, viewers of Netflix's Tiger King will be interested to know that in June, Carol Baskin actually gained the keys to Joe Exotic's zoo. Mad thing.
July saw restrictions in the country intensify as Leicester was the first city to be put in a local lockdown. Staying on the subject of COVID, the Chancellor announced a pay rise above the rate of inflation for 900,000 public service workers as a recognition for their vital contributions towards the crisis. Someone else who wanted to make their vital contribution towards their society was Kanye West, who announced on Twitter that he will actually be running for the 2020 elections in America. No more to be said. Also within the world of entertainment, Jada Pinkett Smith admits to being in an entanglement with August Alsina on her Red Table talk with current husband Will Smith. Take a look at this.
And then what did you do, Jada?
Well, I think from there,
you know, as time went on, I got into a different kind of entanglement.
I think you need to say clearly what happened.
And I got into an entanglement with August. That's what I said.
Hey, that's what I said.
An entanglement?
Yes. Yes.
A relationship?
Yes, it was a relationship.
The month of August continued to deliver in true 2020 fashion. Trump signed an executive order to ban TikTok if it did not sell its US operations within 45 days. The move was prompted by national security concerns regards the personal data of the 100 million Americans that use the app. On the 4th of August, over 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate detonated in the Beirut port where it had been housed for 7 years. It has been recorded as one of the largest non-nuclear blasts ever, and over 6,000 people were injured, and to date, sadly, over 200 deaths have been confirmed as a direct result of the blast. Malta, the Netherlands, France, Belgium and the Bahamas are added to the UK's quarantine list. The UK was significantly behind the curve in requesting that tourists or British citizens returning from other countries with a significant number of COVID-19 cases quarantine. And stepping away from the COVID pandemic and the UK government, August still didn't give us any respite. We sadly lost Chadwick Boseman, aged 43, to colon cancer at the end of August. He was best known for his role in Black Panther and said it changed what it means to be young, gifted and black. And finally, when we thought we'd had enough scandals for 2020, Gavin Williamson was forced into a U-turn following the A-level results scandal, meaning the predicted grades provided by teachers were eventually the primary metric used. The government had faced backlash when it was found the algorithm used to determine students' grades was biased and used two primary sources of information: the ranking of students within a school and a school's historical performance.
Whew, alright, we made it to September. You still with us? Let's go. BBC boss Tim Davies declared that a new ruling has been drawn up that states that any employee of the BBC must remain impartial on social media no matter what, regardless of political agenda, race, whatever you name it, they must remain impartial. In a year like 2020, continuing on from 2019 even, where race relations have been very prevalent, political agendas have been very in your face, and I can't think of a time in my life where your political stance is so crucial to the future that we have. Can we have a national company like the BBC always remain impartial, and should they be reprimanded if they ever choose to not be? This is what this guideline was brought forward to prevent. If you thought COVID had relented up by September, you were very wrong. In September, worldwide, we hit the 1 million death mark. And to this day, it hasn't slowed down at all. Are we ever going to get out of this situation? To all those lives lost, it's such a tragedy.
Another disease, deep-rooted in our system. Fear, hate and ignorance, but racism was the symptom. As the world watched on, another black life gone, leaving what we thought we knew in tatters. What we thought we knew, some clearly didn't. Black lives matter.
Diversity, as most people in the UK know, are a famous dance group that had their claim to fame on, I think it was Britain's Got Talent show. They performed again on Britain's Got Talent, a very powerful, meaningful dance message that was essentially showing the audience through art and through dance the struggle that the black community has been going through the past few years, since forever really, highlighting a lot of the things like the I Can't Breathe stance from George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter marches across the world, and very much so in the UK. 22,000 complaints were sent to Ofcom for this performance. which just goes to show and prove even more that black culture is something that people want to be a part of and want to love and praise. But the moment it is shown as trying to show some meaningful message about the plight of a lot of our people, we don't want any of that. No complaint, get it off my TV. It's always going to be a tough pill to swallow. And they proved it again. They're not with us. In an attempt to quell any ongoing growing fear that artificial intelligence will one day take over from the human race in a moment called the singularity, where technological advancement gets to the point where it no longer needs human interaction to continue bettering itself and advancing and making decisions on its own. In order to quell that fear of that moment, a program called GPT-3 was created to show that artificial intelligence comes in peace and will never turn against us. Its master race, the humans. So an entire article in The Guardian was created in first person from the robot itself, acknowledging itself as a robot to speak to us in order to start peace relations early. And that's September done. We're almost through the year, almost there.
October saw the divisive debates around social media use continue as Facebook banned anti-vax material on its platform. Have a little look at this video.
Facebook's ban on anti-vax advertisements does have a couple of exceptions. For one, ads from the government about vaccine policies, those are still allowed. Also, Facebook posts will still be allowed. So someone on your timeline can post about their opposition to getting vaccines, but any money going into that post would not be allowed, so it cannot be an ad. All right, Facebook already actually bans ads about vaccine hoaxes, such as the false idea that vaccinations cause autism. Well, this latest policy basically expands the ban to include ads that discourage vaccines for any reason.
The Guardian reported that cinema admissions will be down to the level of 1928 following the COVID crisis. This follows news that Cineworld will be closing all cinemas in the US and in the UK. October saw some shocking news in politics. Stateside, they were preparing for their presidential election, which was going to be tightly contested between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But in the UK, long-standing politician and advocate, social organiser Jeremy Corbyn was suspended from the Labour Party. Hear his words next.
What I'll be doing is appealing to the party and those that have made this decision to kindly think again. All I've done is pointed out that this terrible issue of anti-Semitism does exist, and anyone that has anti-Semitic views has no place in the Labour movement or the Labour Party. And we have to deal with it. That is why I set up a process to deal with it. I've explained what I said. I've explained what I meant by it. I am not diminishing or minimising the issue of anti-Semitism. It is serious. It is real. It does exist.
And there actually was some positive news in October. This came in the recognition of Marcus Rashford. He was in the Queen's Honours list for his services to vulnerable people. And Marcus, salute to you.
Rashford couldn't play football in the first months of the COVID crisis, but off the pitch he was hard at work after founding a child poverty task force and ensuring a government U-turn on free school meals. He's now an MBE.
I feel honoured to have that title. I think what I'd like to do now that I'm in this position is just speak directly to the Prime Minister and, you know, just really ask for the vouchers to be extended at least until October half term.
In the penultimate month of 2020, surely there could be no more surprises. Well, the UK is placed into a 4-week national lockdown from the 5th of November as restaurants, pubs and non-essential retail close their doors once again. The month also saw COVID cases reach 1 million in the UK and the government extend the furlough scheme until March. In happier news, news, Americans took to the polls in record numbers to elect Joe Biden as their next president and Kamala Harris as their vice president, making her the first woman, first black woman, and first Asian American to take the office of the vice president. Trump protested the results of unfounded accusations of election fraud. And the more positive tone continues in November. Marcus Rashford's campaign to tackle hunger amongst children during the holidays is addressed with a £396 million package in another government U-turn. Marcus continues to show us why he doesn't just stick to football. And finally, Boris Johnson announced a 10-point green plan as part of a UK green industrial revolution. The plan is expected to cost £12 billion and create 250,000 jobs. One of the pledges is to ban the sale of petrol and diesel cars and vans in the UK by 2030.
December kicked off with some positive news. Football fans up and down the country were allowed back into some stadiums at a maximum capacity of 2,000. But as we all know with football fans, some can be quite nasty pieces of work, as aptly demonstrated by Millwall fans booing their own players as they took a knee in support of BLM.
Millwall have expressed sadness it was overshadowed by their fans booing their own team when they took the knee in their regular gesture against racism.
Imagine how their black players felt. You know, I spoke to Marlon Romeo after the game and he's hurting. His mum was in the stadium yesterday listening.
Who knew taking a stand against racial inequality would be so divisive? Oh yeah, we all knew that. Bob Dylan was in the money in December. He sold his entire back catalogue to Universal Music in the biggest publishing deal ever, worth $300 million. Universal Music have got some sick access to bangers anyway, I'm sure he has bangers. In slightly strange but somewhat unsurprising news, Ofcom found ITV in breach of broadcasting rules. Apparently, ITV failed to process over 40,000 postal entries. You know them competitions that you enter during commercial breaks. 40,000 of them were failed to be processed between 2016 and 2019, meaning some people who entered competitions actually had no chance of winning. I could have done with a new Mercedes as well, man. Some sad news in December. The world lost Dame Barbara Windsor to a long battle with Alzheimer's. She was best known for her roles in Carry On films and as Peggy Mitchell in EastEnders. We also lost Tommy Lester Jr., best known probably for his role as Debo in the Friday films. Rest in peace to both of those, man, they'll be sorely missed. Of course, no month is complete without some coronavirus updates, and December actually saw something positive coming from this side for once. The UK became the first country in the world to approve a COVID-19 vaccine, with the first jab being given to Margaret Keenan. Now, make a note of that for your end-of-year quizzes. Gavin Williamson said that the UK was the first country to approve the vaccine because we're just a better country.
Well, I just reckon we've got the very best people in this country, and we've obviously got the best medical regulators, much better than the French have, much better than the Belgians have, much better than the Americans have. That doesn't surprise me at all, because we're a much better country than every single one of them.
And like something out of Black Mirror, Matt Hancock actually said that he'll take the vaccine on live TV to battle against any conspiracies about anti-vaxxers.
We would happily take this if it helped get the message over. I'd take it live on air. I don't care. I mean, I just feel like it's really important. If we're going to get through this, that enough people take it.
Yeah, I'll take it with you, Piers.
You know what? Let's do this. Actually, I'm serious.
You've got to show leadership in these things.
I'll come to where you are anytime next week if we can do this, and let's do it together, live on air. It would be powerful. It would send the right message. Yeah. If you take it, I take it, Susanna takes it, Dr. Hillary takes it, I think it will have an impact.
Not gonna lie, watch that clip again and look at Susanna's face. She went on it. It wasn't all good news on the COVID-19 front though. As a new strain started to pick up pace and rapidly spread throughout London, various areas went from Tier 3 into the newly created Tier 4 almost overnight. The rapid spread of the new strain of the virus meant that many countries closed their borders to the UK, including from Calais to Dover, leading to a huge backlog of thousands of delivery trucks. This forced the government, who had just relaxed restrictions over the festive period, to row back on their promise not to cancel Christmas, and in fact, place in harsher restrictions. Yeah, we all wait in limbo to see if we're going to be able to turn up again in 2021, but boy, the way how the coronavirus is spreading, and with this new strain, boy, hopes are low, hopes are low. And to round off the year, we finally got a conclusion to the longest running drama. Brexit, of course. Yep, after years of playing deal or no deal, the UK and the EU finally reached a compromise, with both sides seemingly happy. Who knew that fish could be so complicated, man? Now we just got to see if the deal's any good or not. And there you have it, people. What a year it's been. And now I'm sure we all eagerly await what 2021 has in store for us. Damn.